For the first time since 2021, Texas A&M men's basketball one and done here in Nashville, the SEC Tournament. A thriller, Travis, 94-89, double overtime, in-state Lone Star Showdown rivalry. Kind of, I guess, anything you could ask for in a conference tournament game.
Well, we were talking about this as we were walking out, and this is your first SEC tournament.
Yeah.
Neither one of us were at the 2021. I've been here the last 3 years, so if you have any complaints, email tyler.shaw at kbtx.com.
That was the bad luck charm, I guess.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was every bit of a March basketball game that you would expect, especially against two rival teams. But, yeah, I think Buzz summed it up well in the press conference when he said, especially in the first half, they have a resume and a recipe, and they just didn't stick to that recipe well enough.
No, and it was kind of, looking back at because we've had 3 games now between these two teams. They have not. I don't know if their recipe has worked, and especially the one in Austin, where they want to dominate the boards, they want to get to the free throw line and make those free throws. Granted, they did shoot a lot of free throws tonight. They missed some critical ones. Wade Taylor got most of his damage done at the line, so that, I guess, is recipe for success there. But yeah, overall as a team, it just seemed like it did not click. They didn't play, I guess, their brand that they need to do to be successful in March.
Right. In the first half, only 3 offensive rebounds. The recipe, as we know, is offensive rebounds that lead to second chance points, getting to the rim to get fouled, and getting defensive stops, getting turkeys, whether that be a steal, a turnover, or a defensive rebound. Only 3 offensive rebounds in the first half. Now, they ended with 20, and that turned into double-digit points of second chance points. But 3 in the first half is one of the reasons why they went in the locker room with a deficit. They weren't really able to get many defensive rebounds in the first half, and everything kind of clicked on as they got in the second half. And when they got into the bonus, and Wade Taylor was able to get fouled in any myriad of ways that you can imagine a player getting fouled and going to the free throw line, he made his free throws. Now, the other part of that, the rest of the team, a little suspect at the free throw line. As a team, they shot just over 60%, going to the free throw line 40 times.
That's just not good enough. And we talked about, we had one of these kind of recaps after their loss in Austin. We both kind of agreed. We didn't think the sky was necessarily falling. We thought they were still in great shape. Do we have the same kind of vibes after this as now it's looking towards the big dance?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, no, but only because we've reached the point of the season where if you lose, you go home.
Right.
And so you would think that at that point they were still building. They still had put forth a really good first half. It's just that matter of putting 2 good halves together, and that's not really what happened here again tonight. You don't put 2 halves together in their next game, season's over. So that now the learning, the growing period, it's over. It's time to see who this team is and see if they can make a run at things.
And Texas showed kind of what March is all about when you have big shot makers like Trey Johnson, who didn't necessarily, he didn't go off for 30 like he did in Austin earlier in the year, but he had some big shots. Tremont Mark, before he fouled out, hit some big shots. That's what March is having those guys step up in those moments. I know me, you, and Max have talked a lot about this basketball team on the podcast throughout the year, and I remember talking earlier, I think it was after that Oklahoma win, when Zurich had the big game, that I thought that this team was going to go as far as Zurich let them. Now this team is a lot more than just Zurich Phelps, but you can't have someone like Zurich go 3 for 19 and expect to keep staying alive in a run for March. I think that might have been kind of a key today. You need guys like that to step up in March.
And so much about, if you want to talk about this A&M team making up for what maybe they lack in talent with veteran leadership and experience, it was evident today, looking at Wade Taylor's game, what Buzz has said about him for years, that he's a master at time score momentum. He knew that while he can be really good at taking 3-point shots, they were getting the fouls called when he got to the lane, or even kind of dribbling around the perimeter, taking guys on one-on-one. They were getting the fouls called, and he was getting to the free throw line. Zurich Phelps didn't really adjust to the game. And when you get to that second half, it was his decision to try to take a three there as time was winding down and they needed to kind of get back into the game. That ultimately let Texas open up to a 5-point lead. And while they did bring it back to 1, they never were able to come back. So it's just they need that other guy to have that feel. And some of that is, the offense has been running through Andy. Andy fouled out at times. So you're right there. And I think it's just some rapid maturation and just some late game basketball IQ and a feel for the game is what he needs.
Well, and so I guess some positives from this is you had CJ Wilcher and Jace Carter both get their first points of the game in some of the biggest buckets of this game that helped extend this to 2 overtimes late in the game. So, I mean, that's a good sign when you have players like that are struggling, that haven't contributed offensively, but then can come in and hit those kind of shots. The fact that they have that on the team, and then when you have 3 guys foul out and you're mixing and matching, who you're going to play. I don't want to say the outcome would have been different, but it definitely could have been different if you have Andy in, not fouling out.
And not only fouling out, but getting into foul trouble early, that caused some different pieces of rotation.
And Manny was in foul trouble early too. He had 4 fouls for a while, and we saw March Manny a little bit tonight. We saw kind of that. So he's the kind of guy that you would have liked to see more minutes out of him tonight. You just couldn't because you're in foul trouble.
Right. Now, let's talk a second, because I think we need to talk about this. It ultimately necessarily wasn't like the end-all, be-all in the game, but you have that one play where double offensive rebound, a scramble for the ball. There's 7 seconds left on the shot clock in first overtime. The ball somehow finds its way out to Wade Taylor. He releases a shot. It goes in. A&M would be up by 5, I believe. But Buzz Williams called a timeout because things were chaotic. They come back out and run a weird lob play. It just kind of felt like that was the point that momentum changed in the game, especially in that first overtime. A&M, it was all A&M, and then after that, it just kind of got gross to the point where Texas was able to win. I get what Buzz was saying, and I don't necessarily fault him for calling that timeout there, but it is an interesting play call coming out of that to just go with the lob to Pharrell Payne after that.
Buzz is going to stand by his decision. In theory, it maybe was the right call, but if there's a team that can thrive off of chaos, it's this Texas A&M squad and Wade Taylor. Yes, you can't predict that he's going to make that 3, but that's as good of a possibility as any in those kind of situations. They are so good at getting loose balls, getting offensive rebounds, and Wade is just such a great shot maker, even if he's having an off night, where it's almost, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but in a situation like that, I don't know why you do call it.
And I argue, because the thing you have to actually look back to before that is earlier in the game, they were faced with a kind of a similar situation where they called the timeout, and that's where they ran the play to CJ Wilcher to get that 3-pointer off the screen. And I need to go back and look. We've been kind of scrambling around. I wonder if, and we can look at this, how much was Pharrell screening, working off of CJ as kind of a wrinkle, but even then, it was sniffed out the whole time. They had a guy on him. I don't know why, if you're Wade, you make that pass right there. It just, A&M's been so good off of timeouts in those plays after timeouts for most of Buzz Williams' tenure at A&M, and that was just, you thought when they called that timeout, okay, they're going to draw up a good 3-point play, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, in credit to Texas, they were ready for everything that came out of that timeout, and you could kind of sense the energy that Texas Longhorn team was a team that was playing with their season on the line, because that's exactly what it was. I don't, obviously, in hindsight, this game didn't matter a whole lot for A&M as far as postseason. It mattered everything for Texas. I don't want to say that's why they won the game and why A&M lost, but that certainly maybe had some factors into this.
I didn't think that momentum, if in any other situation, if they lost the first game, I didn't think that would be a momentum killer heading in the NCAA tournament. In fact, I kind of thought that they would be a team maybe that could use some rest.
Yeah.
But when you lose a game like that to Texas, I don't know. Is there momentum there?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think so. We talked about a little bit kind of that sweet spot of how do you want to do in the tournament, and through kind of our research, we concluded that maybe making it to the semifinals is the best option for A&M. You know, win a couple of games, don't make it all the way to Sunday and just get burnt out.
And go ahead and reset those national stats for those who hadn't.
Yeah, so the last 3 years, every single team that's made the Final Four has made it at least to the semifinals, with several winning their conference tournament. The only exception was Alabama last year. They got bounced in the quarterfinals, but other than that, every single team in the Final Four did well in their conference tournament. So it's a trend that, you know, could not bode well for A&M. You know, they go one and done. How are they going to do next week in the big dance? I don't know. It's one of those I can see a lot different ways. I think this is a mature team that they're going to be a high enough seed line that they should be expected to make it to the second weekend. But you could run into a team like Texas, and you know, your season's done in one game. So I mean, they don't call it March Madness for nothing. I mean,
yeah. So just wrapping it all up, I think that I think especially in the second half and through most of overtime, if A&M plays that game and kind of gives what the game is giving them, whether that's they're hitting threes, they're getting to the free throw line. Tonight it was getting to the free throw line, and they kind of ride that wave. That's how they've been successful this season. It's those instances where they have kind of been sure of their identity or unsure of the flow of the game that they've struggled.
Yeah.
And early on in that game, it felt like that. And then towards the end of overtime, it felt like they were unsure of how the game was unfolding and flowing. And so that's going to be the key moving forward. I think they're going to need to lead a lot more on Wade Taylor, a lot more on guys like Henry Coleman, some of these veteran guys that are going to get them through. And like you said, you mentioned Jace Carter played some great defense tonight and hit that three. Maybe that's a come-out party for him and like Manny Obaski.
And Travis, the most important question, what is going to be the final meal for us here in Nashville?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we might be going back over to the Assembly Hall.
This is like my favorite place. I love that.
It's so much fun.
I mean, I love everything on Broadway, but that Assembly Hall is awesome.
I was told there's like a Jack's barbecue in there. I might be doing some barbecue tonight.
We'll Tennessee
see.
barbecue.
It's your first. I mean, it was a short stay, but your first SEC tournament trip. As we mentioned, it's all your fault.
Yeah, obviously.
But how do you like the SEC tournament experience?
Well, I think they do it well. I think it's a great setup. I love having it here in Nashville, obviously, and might have been a little bit stale in there for the game we covered, just because there wasn't a whole lot of fans that traveled. But I mean, it's fun seeing all the Kentucky fans out. They're going to be rowdy tonight. Overall, it was a great conference tournament.
Sure.
Can't complain. But, you know, the real dance is next week. A&M is going to find out their fate on KBTX, Selection Sunday, 5 o'clock this Sunday. But for now, reporting here in Nashville, one last time the SEC tournament for Travis Brown and Tyler Shaw.